Hello, this is Jonathan Harold Soulen, and today in video 2 we will trace the life of my grandfather, Harold Lewis Soulen. Here we go. In this video, we'll trace the life of my grandfather, my father's father, Harold Lewis Soulen. But quick, before we do, I just want to make sure to touch on some of the resources that I rely on. My Uncle Bob was a great lover of genealogy, and he put so much work into tracing the family line and documenting that. I rely heavily on his books here and all of the research that he did. My father has written his own biography, his autobiography that traces the Soulen name as well as the Nevins name, and also documents the Kendall and Travis names, grandparents, my grandparents on my mother's side. And not only that, but as we continue to go through these videos, so many more important pieces of information and family notes and family histories that have been written down over the years, over the hundreds of years, to help keep track of the important histories and people that make up my family line. All right, here we go. Many years ago, my mom put together these massive 3-ring binders full of genealogy and artifacts and letters and other items, and included in my 3-ring binder, which I had forgotten about until as part of doing research for this effort, I came across, which is the program of my grandfather's funeral in 1964. And I reread it and treasure it, and it's a wonderful tribute to my grandfather, and I'd like to read a couple of items from here. Dr. Harold L. Soulen, a Methodist minister. How beautiful and humble is that? A Methodist minister. Nothing grandiose, nothing, no bragging there, just simply a Methodist minister. And I'd like to read a few lines. After serving as Methodist minister for multiple churches across southeastern Kansas, he was promoted to district superintendent, where he helped manage all of the congregations and all of the ministers and the minister families. One of the toughest jobs in the Methodist Church. And I'd like to read a couple items here. As district superintendent, he rendered distinguished service as an administrator of the church, and he and my grandmother, Betty, became trusted, admired, and loved counselors of ministers and their families. It says here, so hasty is life. He died at 61 of a heart attack, way too young, but he lived, his life was well lived. So we'll cover his life as we go through the rest of this video. Okay, here we go. There are a lot of wonderful photos in this series, but this one here has to be my favorite. Look at this amazing photo. So my grandfather is a baby, and we'll look at this photo many times again, because my grandfather Harold is in this photo, as well as my great-grandfather Lewis Soulen and his wife, my great-grandmother Marjorie Faust. We'll come back to this photo when we do an exam of their lives, but first we're going to focus on baby Harold. Baby Harold is located here, and what's interesting is he's being held by some guy named Seth Calkin. I have the list of numbers relating to names, so he's held over here by the side, Seth Calkin. Not sure why. My grandfather Lewis is here, and he's right next to my grandmother Marjorie here. They are in the front of his house. There are only a handful of Soulens here. The remainder are Fausts, and we'll talk about that later. So where is Galena, Kansas? If you were to put your thumb in the bottom right-hand corner of Kansas, you're going to be pretty close to Galena. Right across the line in Missouri is Joplin, which was another favorite where many cousins were, and a fun place for the Soulens to go. If you're going to do a big family picture like this, you're also going to do smaller pictures. So here's a smaller picture with the Lewis Soulen family and some additional aunts and uncles and grandparents. So again, we'll take a closer look at this. This is a wonderful picture of the three siblings, baby Harold, Uncle Jake, and Aunt Dora. And here's a quick picture of these three later in life. Just a great photo. Now, Harold grew up in Galena, which was a rough and tumble mining town. More on that later. And I don't have many photos of him as a boy. If you happen to have photos of the Lewis Soulen family, please send them in. But this photo here is of Harold graduating from high school. Harold was the only one of his family to go on to college, and here are some wonderful photos of the yearbook. And he excelled in college. He was a member of the quartet with his beautiful voice of the Glee Club. He was business manager, class president, and really excelled. At Baker University in Baldwin. And it was there that he met Betty Soulen. Now, who would not be smitten by this beautiful young lady? And of course, Harold was. And Betty Nevins also saw a lot to love in Harold Soulen. So in the years of college, Harold began to realize, and I talked to my dad just a little bit about his calling to the ministry. So somewhere along the line of growing up in Galena, attending the Methodist camps and revivals, and being mentored, I'm not sure by who, he realized that he was being called to the ministry. And so he wanted to go to school to get his Master's of Divinity. And so he did, and he wanted to go to Boston. But he had already fallen in love with Betty Nevins and did not want to lose her. So they eloped on September 5th, 1925. And I know this because I have the wedding ring that's inscribed with the initials and dates. So they elope. My grandfather goes off to Boston for 1 year. After 1 year, he comes back. I think maybe he misses Betty. And they begin a life together. He finishes his degree at Garrett Seminary. And then they begin their life of ministry. Look at this wonderful family photo with baby Dorothy Jean. What a sweetheart. Dorothy Jean arrived in 1927, and I believe they were in Chicago. Uncle Bob arrived in 1932. At this point, they were looking for a church to serve in Kansas, and they began looking and moved to Lenexa, which is just outside of Kansas City. On April 30th, 1933, my dad, Richard Nevins, arrived, and grandmother states he was a bit of a surprise. He was born on a Sunday and was named the Little Preacher by the local paper. And my dad will say he never had to decide what he was. He was a preacher. So let's take a look at the different churches in Kansas. After a short time in Chicago, they were able to find a church just outside of Kansas City. And so they served in Lenexa, and then they moved to a church in Argentine, again, just outside of Kansas City, then to Chanute and Topeka and Hutchinson and Salina. A couple other landmarks here. This is Galena, where Harold was born, and out here, Dodge City, Kansas, where Betty Nevins was born, and the green dot is Baker University in Baldwin, where Harold would meet Betty. They loved to travel to Meeker Park for vacations, and that was a tradition my dad brought to our family, and we also would go to Meeker Park and stay in the rustic cabins, and my dad would remember fond memories of seeing his father on the porch and other folks enjoying the cool mountain air. So if you have additional memories you'd like to jot down, this is part of the reason of the videos. Include them in the comment section below, and they can continue to flesh out the life of Harold Lewis Soulen. The next video will cover my grandmother, Betty Nevins. Till then.
The state of Arkansas, where my great-grandpa met my great-grandma. They drink apple cider and they get on a jag, and they dance all night to the salty dog rag. They play an old fiddle like you never heard before. They play the only tune that they ever did.